Our world is wonderful. From its simple flowers that for whatever reason cheer us, to its complex systems and cycles that baffle us. From its powerful volcanoes that leave us in fear and awe, to its gentle breeze and sunshine that soothes us. From its seasons and changes that bring us variety, to its constant motion around the sun that brings us stability. To think of our Earth, to think of our solar system, to think of our Milky Way itself, it is stunning. If you've ever thought about the complexities of this world or thought through its exactness and precision, then this one's for you today. We're going to think about our privileged planet. Failte go, good news for Armagh. In 1968, the BBC showed pictures from the Apollo 8 mission. For the first time, a crew would leave the Earth's orbit and travel to the far side of the moon, taking pictures of things that had never been glimpsed by humankind before. President Kennedy had determined that the moon landing should happen before the end of the decade, and this was to be the dry run. It was an exciting endeavour all round. After some initial problems with the camera were overcome, Frank Borland, Jim Lovell and Bill Anders were the first people to be far enough away from the Earth to be able to see the whole planet with the naked eye. It made a deep impression on the crew. For 3.5 hours into the flight, Jim Lovell spoke his words to NASA. He said this: "Well, I can see the entire Earth now out of the central window. Beautiful." That was the word he used and what he kept repeating. And there is something about looking at and studying our world that produces in us a kind of an awe. And it's almost tempting to break into song with Louis Armstrong and to sing, "What a Wonderful World." What I find interesting is that this tends to happen to you whether you believe in God or not. Even Richard Dawkins, the famous atheist, talks about a quasi-mystical response to nature and to the universe that is common among scientists and rationalists. The universe is awe-inspiring. And when we think seriously about the cosmos, when we try to understand a little about the factors involved in shaping and maintaining our environment, that makes complex life possible. It does stir us. Even something as apparently simple and common as soil is amazing. If you've ever seen the movie The Martian, you may have been struck, as I was, by the complexity of soil and the way it is so perfectly balanced for growing things. Conversely, and on the opposite side of things, the universe as a whole is terrifying. It's uninhabitable and it is an immense place. The 2013 film Gravity gives you a sense of the sheer harshness and the danger of space. Now, this vastness and this inhospitable nature of space has actually led some to think that it's cosmic waste, and to suggest that there is nothing special about our planet or about we who live on this planet. On my shelf sits a photo called a pale blue dot. It was taken in 1990 by Voyager 1 as it was on the edge of our solar system, and the picture is brilliant. I love it. It's a blue-black backdrop with shafts of light coming vertically down through the shot. But within of one of those rays, there is this pale blue dot that is Earth from 14 billion miles away. And Carl Sagan, who wrote the book with the same title, he said this about it.
"That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there, on a mote of dust, suspended in a sunbeam. The Earth is a very small stage in a vast cosmic arena. Think of the rivers of blood spilled by all those generals and emperors, so that in glory and triumph they could become the momentary masters of a fraction of a dot. Think of the endless cruelties visited by the inhabitants of one corner of this pixel on the scarcely distinguishable inhabitants of some other corner. How frequent their misunderstandings, how eager they are to kill one another, how fervent their hatreds. Our posturings, our imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe are challenged by this point of pale light. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. In our obscurity, in all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves.
This is a brilliant quote, but you will see very quickly that this is bleak by anyone's standards. I've cut the quote down for the sake of space, but you should Google the image and read the quote in full. And he's right about an awful lot he says, but not about our importance, as I hope we will see today. Remember, the size of space is actually necessary in order to have a habitable planet to make complex life, as Martin Rees told us in the last podcast. The more we study this universe and this pale blue dot we call home, the more we see two things: beauty and habitability held in tension with danger and vastness. It is an astounding thing that we have a planet in a solar system that is in a galaxy that is tuned precisely for life. Now, in recent years, there has been a furious hunt for life out there to find exoplanets, planets other than our own that can support complex life. And they do this by an amazing way, by detecting a wobble in the star's motion induced by the gravity of the planet orbiting. Carl Sagan, again, who wrote a fiction called Contact, which was later turned into a Hollywood blockbuster, I think it was starring Jodie Foster, he made the SETI project a household name. This endeavour beams radio signals out into the universe in the hope that they would be answered by intelligent life. Now, this same spirit of exploration is continued today by NASA's Exoplanet Scientific Institute, who are not only searching for planets like our own, but also complex life like our own. But for that to be possible, for complex life to survive in a planet like our own, precise qualities and quantities of certain things must occur. The more we examine our surroundings, the more the list of features needed is increasing. The factors involved in the original Drake equation, that's the equation which calculates the likely number of Earth-like planets in the Milky Way, the factors in it is expanding. As I hope we will see, we have a unique planet. A planet that is the right size, that has the right chemical composition, that has the right type of sun, that's the right distance from it, that has a molten core, and so on and so on and so on and so on. The more we study our surroundings, the more we see that we are living on a privileged planet. Richard Attenborough recently said in his recent book, "It is the only place we have, it is the only place where life exists, as far as we can tell. It is uniquely precious." We have beauty in this universe, we have danger, and we have us on this pale blue dot in the middle of an ocean of black. Beauty and life in the middle of death and nothingness. It is a privileged planet that we live on. It's not my intention to turn this into a high school science class, but having said that, I'd love to consider a few things about our existence that makes life possible. I want to take a journey from the cosmic galaxy to the very ground from under our feet. Let's start with our galaxy, the Milky Way. Now, in 2003, Hubble's advanced camera sent back a stunning look into the depth of the cosmos. It was taken of a particularly dark part of the sky, about the size of a 5-pence coin, held up 20 feet away. So a very small area in a place where there didn't seem to be many stars. But amazingly, What came back looked like hundreds of stars, but it wasn't. In fact, it was thousands of galaxies, each containing hundreds of billions of stars. It's an incredible photo showing the immense size of the known universe, and not just the number of galaxies, but also that these galaxies are different shapes. There were spiral galaxies, like a Catherine wheel in a fabrics display. Then there were elliptical galaxies. Think of kind of like an egg shaped galaxy. Thirdly, there were irregular galaxies which appeared disorganized and distorted, not having the order necessary to actually for life to be conducive. Unsurprisingly, the Milky Way galaxy in which we live is the most conducive to life. It is mostly a flat disk spanning 100,000 light years across with a bulge in the middle, where several hundred billion stars rotate around a monster black hole called Sagittarius A. Now, where the Milky Way galaxy is located is important. It is not in a cluster of galaxies, for if it were, the gravitational force from the cluster itself would rip us apart. Our nearest galaxy is actually Andromeda, which is hurtling toward us at 250,000 miles per hour and will apparently bring about our eventual doom. But this thin disk and the relative flatness of our galaxy helps our sun stay in its desirable circular orbit, preventing it from crossing out into the spiral arms at the exterior or entering the dangerous inner regions of our galaxy. Our sun is about 25,000 light years, about halfway across from the center. And in this position, we slowly orbit the central axis of the galaxy. Like a planet revolving round a star, we maintain roughly the same distance from the galactic center. This is what we call the galactic habitable zone, that slight area within our galaxy that is favorable to life. Now, it should be said that even in this small slithers of a life-given zone, Hugh Ross, the astronomer, said, ironically, because of binary or multiple star systems, wrong types of stars, wrong age of stars, or clusters of stars, most areas within the galactic habitable zone aren't even that livable. Yet here we are, within this narrow zone where life-sustaining planets are possible. I saw an interview on the Joe Rogan show with Brian Cox recently, and he said this. He said that we are probably the only complex life in this galaxy, although he has hope for more galaxies. But whatever way you look at it, we are definitely rare in this world. Next, I want to think about our specific sun. If you look up to the sky on a clear night, you could understandably conclude that our sun is one of trillions of other stars that could possibly form a stable energy source to make a habitable planet possible. But this would be wrong. Only 90% of all stars are main sequence stars, meaning that they are the right age of their life, neither being born nor dying, but a good middle age to be stable enough for the long haul of producing life. But that is still a lot, yes. But the sun is not just the right age in its life, but it's the right type of star. Technically, it's called a G-type main sequence star, or a yellow dwarf, which means that it's basically larger than most. Now, just 2.7 of all main sequence stars are G-type yellow dwarfs. M dwarfs, or red dwarfs, are by far the most common type of star in the Milky Way. Now, this isn't just splitting hairs in classification. They are genuinely very different. Red dwarfs tend to be smaller and cooler, which means that 80% of all of the stars are less conducive for life, which makes planetary systems actually very rare. So if you look up into the sky tonight, and it's a clear night, you can be sure that none of the stars that you'll be looking at are red dwarf, because their light is drastically fainter. They're smaller, remember. Our nearest star, for example, Proxima Centauri, is about 4.2 light years away. Yet if you were to look with a naked eye into the sky, you would never see it. For stars like red dwarfs, they are smaller than the sun, and so because they are smaller and their light is fainter, the planet needs to be closer to the star for heat. And that means that habitable zone is located further inward toward the star itself. But then if the habitable zone is more towards the star itself, The gravitational tidal effects from the star can cause what's called a synchronistic rotation, a synchronistic orbit for the planet. And what that means is that the same side of the planet will always face the star. Our planet rotates on its axis. That wouldn't happen if we were rotating around a red dwarf. One side of our planet would always face the star, one side would face away. And that would lead to extreme conditions for the planet. The dark side of the planet freezes, the light side roasts. If our sun was a red dwarf, there would be further problems, which I haven't got time to go into, but Google it for yourself. But needless to say, about half of all G-type stars live in binary orbits. We don't. Our sun doesn't have another star rotating around it either. Our sun is a bachelor. Our sun is not only the right mass, but it emits the right colors of lights. It is the right size. It is a single one. It is the right type of star. And because of this, our sun is metal rich, having an abundance of heavy elements compared to other stars of its age in the region. Our sun is highly stable, more so than comparable to other stars. Recent studies by Ron Gilliland in 2011 and Timo Reinhardt in 2020 have shown that our sun is unusually quiet, meaning it's stable in its output. And this for the planet obviously prevents wild climate swings and so forth. Now, to sum this up, our sun has the right mass, the right light, the right composition, it's the right distance from the Earth, it has the right orbit in the right type of galaxy at the right location in the galaxy to nurture life. Now, that is rare. It has been estimated that 0.5% of all G-type stars are like our own. So what I'm saying is that our sun is not a common star. It is genuinely rare. Apparently, an astronomer's worst fear is that he might be called an astrologer. Astrology teaches that stars and planets exert a major influence over our daily life. Now, this is mysticism, but however, recent research has in an odd way proved astrologers slightly correct. Two types of heavenly bodies, both the moon and our outer planets, do in fact play a pivotal role in our very existence as a species. I want us to think for a moment just about the outer planets of our solar system. Our solar system is made up, as you know, of inner and outer planets that orbit the sun. So you've got Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars that make up the inner solar system. And then we have an asteroid belt before heading out to the outer planets of Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, with either Pluto playing a part of it or not. I just want to mention two things about these outer planets. First of all, almost all of our inner planets have a near circular orbit. Earth's, for example, is almost a perfect circle. And without these larger outer planets, our orbits would be less stable. And that would mean our temperature would shift from ice ages to Sahara conditions. And so the presence of these outer planets stabilizes our orbit. Secondly, then, you take Jupiter, for example. It is a giant gas bowl that gets hotter and denser with depth. And even if you use a small backyard telescope, Jupiter is quite a sight, 10 times larger than the Earth, over 300 times its mass, and it's by far the most massive planet orbiting the Sun. But because it is so dense, it exerts enormous gravitational influence. And this is amazingly effective in scattering any approaching bodies, asteroids and comets that would be life-threatening to the Earth. So according to George Witherall of the Carnegie Institute of Washington, the amount of 10-kilometer wide bodies hitting Earth might be 10,000 times higher if Jupiter had not come to be. When planetary systems lack planets to guard the outer boundary of terrestrial planet region, the inner planets may not be capable of supporting more than microbial life. Our planetary system, our solar system, has two of these cosmic vacuums, Jupiter and Saturn. Let's now think about our moon. Now, finding a planet out there is only part of the equation. We need a moon. Now, there are an incredible 205 moons in our own solar system, but none like our own. The moon is just a spherical rock, 2,000 miles in diameter and about 250,000 miles away, but its presence has enabled Earth to become a long-term habitable planet. Our moon is actually something of an anomaly because of its large size in comparison to its parent planet. At nearly a third of the size of the Earth, in some ways it's more of a twin than a subordinate, but this does a number of things. Firstly, this unique size stabilizes the Earth's axis. The Earth's tilt, as you'll know, is 23.5 degrees thereabouts, giving us very mild seasons. But without the moon, the tilt of the Earth would wander in response to the gravitational pulls of both the Sun and Jupiter, swinging wildly over a large range and resulting in major temperature swings. Instead, because of the gravity from the moon's orbit, it keeps the Earth stabilized, and we only have a variation of 1.5 degrees. As astronomer Jacques Lescar says, we owe our present climate stability to an exceptional event, the presence of the moon. Secondly, then, the moon fuels our tides. It contributes to about 60% of our tidal system, with the sun accounting for the other 40. You can see this if you go to the beach. You see the sea breathe in and out morning and evening as we rotate here on Earth. Tides serve an important role by flushing out nutrients from the continents to the oceans, which keeps them nutrient rich. Then thirdly, the moon also slows down our Earth's rotation. If the moon was bigger, it would slow the Earth down too much, meaning days and nights would become too long and the temperature differences between night and day would be too extreme. The moon is exactly the right size and in exactly the right place to help create a habitable environment for Earth. Now, interestingly, the moon is now generally believed to have formed as a consequence of a glancing collision with a Mars-sized body during the latter stages of Earth's formation. Now, if such moon-forming collisions are rare, and they are, habitable planets might be equally as rare. Brownlee and Ward say this: of the many elements of the rare Earth hypothesis, the presence of our huge moon seems to be one of the most important and yet most perplexing. Without a large moon, it seems almost unlikely that life could have progressed as successfully as it has. And I agree with them. Our unique moon makes Earth even more rare and more privileged. So we have seen our galaxy, our sun, our outer planets, and our moon. Now, I'll quickly mention four things here because I could run away with this and it could become very boring, but do Google privileged planet for yourself. So firstly, four things quick. The safe zone. So like the galactic habitable zone, that is at our precise place in the Milky Way, we have a precision needed in the placement of Earth in our solar system. And that is called the circumstellar habitable zone, or the Goldilocks zone, because it's just right. So too close to our sun and water will evaporate because of heat. It'll be lost into the atmosphere. It'll cause a runaway greenhouse effect and it'll boil off our oceans. But then too far away and we freeze and life cannot start. So a couple of percent either way spells disaster, and where we are is just right. Secondly, then, life's basic solvent, water. It's an amazing thing. Complex life requires the presence of a solvent that can provide a medium for chemical reactions, transporting molecules to reaction sites whilst preserving their integrity. Water is virtually unique in its density, in its stability, moving from solid to liquid to gas easily, and in its surface tension, and it makes an all-important part of our climate regulation system. And it is striking that so many unique qualities should occur together in one substance. It is an amazing thing. But for water to fulfill all these distinct functions, a planet's water supply must be large enough to sustain a sizable ocean on its surface, and that ocean must not be lost to space, and it must exist in liquid form. And this is precisely what we have on this privileged planet. Thirdly, then, you have life's basic element, carbon. Now, I'm a big sci-fi geek, and often in the sci-fi stories, you've got brave heroes meeting aliens from other worlds whose different appearance is the result of being based on a different element. Now, the reality is that, as far as scientists can tell, that this universe seems to be carbon-based. So silicon-based life or life based on any other element just won't happen because carbon is unique and amazing. Carbon atoms form the backbone of almost all important biological molecules floating around in our bodies, for example. Now, this is exact, and carbon is exact, and it is abundant in this universe and on Earth. And this is a startling fact to some scientists. So I'll quote John Lennox here, and he says this: for life to exist on Earth, an abundant supply of carbon is needed. Carbon is formed by either combining 3 helium nuclei or combining nuclei of helium and beryllium. So, eminent mathematician and astronomer, he goes on to say, Fred Hoyle, found that for this to happen, the nuclear ground state energy levels must be fine-tuned with respect to each other. And this phenomenon is called resonance. If the variation were more than 1% either way, the universe could not sustain life. Hoyle later confessed that nothing had shaken his atheism as much as this discovery. Even this degree of fine-tuning was enough to persuade him that it looked as if, and quoting Hoyle here now, a super intellect had monkeyed with the physics as well as the chemistry and biology, and that there were no blind forces in nature worth talking about. So whenever Hoyle looked at carbon and saw how it interacted and saw how amazing a backbone of almost all of the important biological molecules, that shook him because it was such a unique and an amazing element. Biochemist A.E. Needham comments, he says, as in so many other respects, carbon seems to have the best of both worlds, combining stability with pliability, momentum with inertia. John Lewis, a planetary scientist at the University of Arizona, agrees that carbon and water have no equals. After considering the possible alternatives, he concludes this: despite our best efforts to seek out other solvents and other structural chemistries for life, we are forced to conclude that water is the best of all possible solvents, and carbon compounds are apparently the best of all possible carriers of complex information. And I kind of think to myself that this has just happened. This is just fluke. Oh, there seems to be something basic here, doesn't there? We seem to have a privileged universe and a privileged planet right down to the nuclear level. Fourthly, then, we have our air conditioner, the atmosphere. So if you take a breath for a minute and consider how that's even possible for us to breathe, we have to think about our atmosphere. It is a layer, or better, a set of layers of gases that surround our planet, and it's held in place by the gravity of the Earth. And it's mostly, as you know, composed of nitrogen, oxygen, argon, carbon dioxide, and other traces of gases. Oxygen is used by most organisms, and it's necessary for life to thrive. So our atmosphere allows us to thrive in life. Secondly, our atmosphere helps protect us from the danger of the sun. Solar ultraviolet radiation, solar wind, cosmic rays can do damage to us, and our atmosphere filters out harmful UV rays. And thirdly, our atmosphere allows this Earth to regulate its climate. And this hinges on carbon dioxide, on water vapor, and to a lesser extent methane, all of which are important atmospheric greenhouse gases. And basically put, we have a unique oxygen-rich atmosphere that protects us from outside threats while allowing us to thrive from within it. And this atmosphere gives us just a glimpse into some of the cycles and systems that continually run in our world and allow life to be. It is complex, it is necessary, and it is utterly unique. What makes Earth different from other planets in our solar system? Why can Earth sustain life? Well, Earth is unique in its possession of liquid water at the surface, its oxygen-rich atmosphere, its temperature range which allows water to exist liquid water to exist, and its linear mountain ranges. So at this crude level of observation of oceans, mountain ranges, and atmosphere, Earth is set apart in the solar system. Now, these attributes of Earth are connected in a complex, interdependent relationship, and all three might be the result of plate tectonics caused by our planet's core. And this is what I want to think about lastly. What lies beneath our core? Now, these plate movements do several things. Firstly, plate tectonics promotes high levels of global diversity. High biodiversity is the major defense against mass extinction. Secondly, plate tectonics provide a global thermostat. Thirdly, plate tectonics is the dominant force that causes changes in sea level, which are necessary for the formation of minerals, for example. And then fourthly, plate tectonics creates the continents, without which planet Earth would just be a water world. But fifthly, plate tectonics makes it possible for one of the Earth's most potent defense systems, its magnetic field. Now, a strong magnetic field creates a cavity called the magnetosphere, which protects our atmosphere from direct interaction with solar winds. So if solar winds were interact more directly with our Earth's atmosphere, they would actually strip it away, and for life that would be bad news, and our water would be lost to space. Now, this final idea of our core, you can see all of what it does, and it makes Earth unique, and it makes Earth privileged. So what shall we say to these things? Let's piece this all together. We are in both the right size and type of galaxy, at the right point of time, and in the exact position in the galaxy conducive to life. We have the right host star. It's not a binary, but it's a bachelor star. Our sun is the right size. It has the right type of light, and its age and distance from us are quite perfect. We have giant outer planets like cosmic bouncers which protect us from planet-killing projectiles and keep us stable in our orbit. We have a moon big enough and near enough to us to give us greater stability and maintain tidal control and keep the balance of our tilt fixed. Our Earth's atmosphere is uniquely able to maintain a heat balance, yet filter out harmful UV rays. It is oxygen rich and maintained by a specific carbon cycle. We have life's basic solvent, water, and it's in abundance, together with life's basic element, carbon, with its resonance. At the core of our planet is a molten furnace, which gives us continents, stabilizes sea levels, creates global biodiversity, provides a global thermostat, and produces a magnetic field to guard off harmful cosmic rays. So how does all of this happen? Is it possible that all this intricately balanced precision came about by chance? This planet is a cozy pale blue dot in an almost infinite black hostile ocean of this universe, and it stands unique, and that is staggering. In my judgment, this is not meaninglessness, and it makes us privileged. I don't buy the argument that value is determined by size, that because we are so small in this cosmos that we are valueless. No, my wife's finger is a pale diamond dot. It is small in terms of size, but not in value. And I think this is true of the Earth. Look at all of these elements and tell me that it doesn't raise your eyebrow, that it doesn't make you suspect that there's something out there. Owen Gingerich of Harvard University and senior astronomer emeritus at the Smithsonian Astrophysics Observatory, he said this. He said, "I am personally persuaded that a super intellect creator exists beyond and within the cosmos, and that the rich context of congeniality shown by our universe, permitting and encouraging the existence of self-conscious life, is part of the creator's design and purpose." And I think he is absolutely right. I want to play you out with Jim Lovell, one of the astronauts on the Apollo 8 mission, and let's see what he thought. And it's really interesting what they chose to send back to Earth, reflecting on what they were looking at. Slán go fóill.
I put my thumb up to the window of the spacecraft, and I can completely hide the Earth behind my thumb. The Earth is a mere speck in the Milky Way galaxy. Look what we have here. Water and an atmosphere. We're orbiting a star just at the proper distance to absorb that star's energy. God has given mankind a stage upon which to perform. How the play turns out is up to us.
For all the people back on Earth, the crew of Apollo 8 has a message that we would like to send to you. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And from the crew of Apollo 8, we close with good night, good luck, a Merry Christmas, and God bless all of you on the good earth.